and to talk to you a day today, hidden costs of too much. You say, what are you talking about today? Example, if you speak too much, you know what happens? You're in to lose truth. You end up talking, and people begin to not listen any longer because you talk too much. I knew a young man, for example, when I was younger. His name was Jeff, and Jeff would be talking all the time. It got to the point where people weren't listening anymore. So if you speak too much, your words, of course, lose truth. If you think too much, you know what happens? We call that overthinking. And when you end up overthinking, your peace begins to slip into sadness. That's right. You start worrying about things that may never happen. In fact, did you know that 90% of all the things that we, worry about actually don't ever happen? So if you think too much or if you overthink, your peace can actually disappear and it can end up in worry or in sadness. If you cry too much, that's right, you can actually be sad for too long. Even your tears will grow tired. So remember that. It's okay to cry and it's okay to be hurt, but it's not okay to cry and stay hurt. Sooner or later, you've got to let go of whatever it is that makes you cry. Now, guess what? Even if you love too much, you may lose yourself. You say, wait a minute. You mean I can actually love too much? That's right. Because what happens when you are walking in compassion, empathy, and sympathy, it can actually overwhelm you so much that you begin to lose yourself in the problems of others. So there is a time, of course, to be kind, and I encourage you to be kind. I encourage you to be compassionate. I encourage you to be empathetic, but also as well, don't become so involved in the lives of others that you actually begin to lose yourself. Now, if you care too much, you wait a minute. You care too much? Yes, that's right. You can actually care too much. And you know what happens? Others may take you for granted. That's right. There are people out there that say, hey, I care for you. And then they show that and they begin to enable people who are, unsympathetic, people who are selfish, people who are narcissistic. They will actually take advantage of that and take you for granted. Then all of a sudden, you begin to feel like you're being used. So be careful that you don't care too much. Care enough. Show love, show compassion, show kindness, but don't allow people to take advantage of you. Now, here's something as well. If you play too much, that's right. I know people that, basically play with life. And what happens is you may not be taken seriously. There are people out there that are joking around and pranking and, saying, hey, I'm not here for a good time or a long time. I'm here for a good time. And then when they actually want to be serious about something, you know what happens? People don't take them seriously. And then all of a sudden they have to, be loud and aggressive, which is contrary to where they have been. And all of a sudden, that's the only way they can be taken seriously. So, of course, if you play too much, people don't take you seriously. Now, if you trust too much, you say, wait a minute, if I trust too much, yes, you need to walk with wisdom. Wisdom basically says, I am going to believe the best for every person, but I'm not going to be surprised when, of course, they don't do that. Believe for the best, but don't, expect the worst can happen as well. I talked about the fact that people can be toxic. Even ourselves, we can be toxic. And when you trust too much, something happens. Betrayal will find a way. So it's important to, of course, trust. but not too much. And also, as well, remember that basically every person is capable of betrayal, of lying, and also of toxicity. So walk with wisdom. That's what I'm trying to say today. Also, as well, if you work too much, yes, there are people out there that work way too hard. I want to remind you that if you were fired from a job or if you resigned from a job, they're going to find somebody in 2 or 3 days. And that big job that you thought you were indispensable were, well, guess what? You weren't. And you know what happens? Stress will steal your life. So find the work balance, okay? It's very, very important. I'll share a little story about myself. When I was in my first church, I was a pastor at the time, and I was focusing on the job, trying to be the best I could be. Well, I came home for lunch on one of those rare occasions. I walked through the door, and my son, whose name is Robert, he was about 2.5, and he said, "Hello, Pastor Daddy." And all of a sudden, I realized in that moment, I said, "I'm not Pastor Daddy, I'm Daddy." And then I sat down at the table and I said to my wife, I said, "Am I working too hard?" She said, "Yes." And it was then I realized that I was working too hard and it was stealing from me those special moments of life. Right then and then, I made a decision that I was going to put my family before my work situation, my marriage before my work situation. Listen, if you eat too much, you know what happens? Balance turns into an obsession. We all know people that love food, and we know people that eat too much, and it leads to obesity, and it also leads a life out of balance. And that balance can actually become an obsession. So remember that. If you sleep too much, you say, wait a minute, sleep too much? Yes, there are people out there who sleep too much. And you know what happens? Purpose fades into idleness. That's right. You can become lazy when you sleep too much. What I'm trying to get across today is finding the balance in life. Listen, if you spend too much, tomorrow becomes uncertain. There are people out there that love to spend money, and they spend money like it's going out of style. I'll tell you a little story. Years ago, when I was living up north, one of the street people in our community won $1 million. That's right, he won $1 million. All of a sudden, he had friends galore. So, what did he do? He took his $1 million and headed down to one of the major cities in Canada. And he was there for several months. About 4 or 5 months later, I seen him on the street again. And I said, "What happened to the $1 million?" "Oh, I spent it." He did. He spent $1 million in a few months. He had wine, women, and song. But he didn't realize and he was going to end up back where he was. This is actually a reality. Did you know that 95% of all those who win the big one actually end up as, where they were 5 years later? Why? Because money they think is going to last a long time. There are Hollywood stars, for example, that have gone broke because of the simple fact is that they have spent their money foolishly, or they gave their money to someone who took advantage of it. So if you spend too much, tomorrow becomes uncertain. Also recognize that every day is a day in which we live, and that's the only day that we had. In Canada, and this is an interesting thought, in Canada, just a few days ago, we had a shooting in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. That day, there were several young people between the ages of 12, 13, and one educational assistant whose name was 39. They went to school that morning not recognizing or realizing that it would be their last day on this planet. Now, I'm not in any way taking advantage of that situation. I'm just simply reminding myself and you today that life is fluid. There are people who get up every single day believing that they're going to make it through the day and they don't. So enjoy every moment of the life. Be wise in what you do every day and especially what you spend every day. If you wear too much makeup, yes, ladies can wear too much makeup. Natural beauty is actually forgotten. It was interesting that one of the Hollywood stars right now, her name is Pamela Anderson. When you see Pamela Anderson today versus, let's say, a couple of years ago when she was putting on makeup, you hardly recognize the lady. She chose to embrace her age and show her natural beauty. It's a little different than putting on makeup. But the simple fact is, if you wear too much makeup, the natural beauty is actually forgotten. Of course, my thought is if you have to paint the barn, paint the barn. If you watch too much, you know what happens? Focus disappears. There are people that, for example, watch their devices, they do their scrolling, they do, social media, and focus actually disappears. You know, experts tell you that you should not do social media a couple of hours before bed. You know why? Because it actually stimulates your brain. It's called blue light. And what happens is, of course, you can't sleep because of the blue light syndrome. So if you watch TV too much, you're too many times on social media, what can happen is you can lose focus. And all you have to do these days is watch children in action. I drive a bus and I see how that children today have the attention span of mosquitoes. So when you watch too much of what's going on in social media, your focus can actually disappear. If you chase life too hard, you may lose what matters most. There's a lot of folks out there who chase the wrong things. And it's only at the end of life that they realize what they have missed. They did a survey among seniors, and every one of those seniors say this: I worked too hard and I focused on all the wrong things. And here I am with only a little bit time left. And there's a lot of regrets that they have. Why? Because they chase life too hard. They realize the people that people were really important, and they chose the wrong things. So if you chase life too hard, you can actually miss what matters most. And if you expect too much, disappointment waits. That's right. You can have unrealistic expectations about life, about people, about things in general, and you're going to be disappointed. So, my simple advice is simply this: everything in excess becomes a burden. You need to learn balance because too much can hurt more than too little. You know, I know people who have all kinds of toys, all kinds of activities, all kinds of things, and they're not happy people. You know why? Because they haven't learned balance. I live in an area, a kind of a rural community, and I notice that when I drive down the road or I walk down the road, I find so many people not living a happy and productive life. You know why? Because everything they do is in excess and it becomes a burden. So learn balance and learn that too much can hurt more than too little. That's my thought for you and myself today. Let's find the balance in life. I have a friend who, whenever I talk to them, they always say, you know what? Pray for me that I would find the balance in life. And I really didn't understand that until one day I sat down and I asked them about that balance. And they said, help me to find that I don't do too much and don't do too little, that I find the balance in life, and that I live my life to the fullest and for the benefit and encouragement of others. That's my thought for you today. My name is Robert Dean Steele. This, of course, is YouTube Live. May I encourage you to today check out my YouTube shorts. I did a whole bunch of them today. They're those little messages that are usually under 1 minute. Little thoughts, one thought, maybe two thoughts. Check that out. Also, as well, if you like what you're hearing, then I encourage you to press the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Have yourself a great and godly day and find the balance in life today. Because remember, too much could actually be a real burden for you today. And too little is, of course, not good as well. Learn to balance your life.